Na was only 21 years old, but her life already felt heavy with dreams and struggles. She had grown up in a small neighborhood where everyone knew each other. She was known as a quiet and hard-working girl who often helped her mother sell food by the roadside. Na always spoke about her dreams of starting a new life. She wanted to finish her training in sewing and open a small shop where she could design dresses. She imagined a signboard above the door with her name on it, and she imagined women coming to her shop smiling as they tried on her designs. But dreams are fragile and sometimes life breaks them without warning. One hot afternoon everything changed. Na was on her way home from the market when a commotion broke out near one of the stalls. A woman screamed that her bag of money was missing. People turned in every direction, searching with angry voices. Then, suddenly someone pointed at Na. "It's her," a man shouted. "I saw her standing close. She must have taken it." Na's eyes widened with shock. "No, no, it's not me," she cried, shaking her head. "I didn't take anything. I was only passing." But the crowd had already decided. Hands grabbed her arms roughly. Her protests were drowned by voices accusing her of being a thief. Tears filled her eyes as the woman whose bag was stolen shouted, "She must pay. Arrest her." By the time the police arrived, Na could no longer speak. Her voice was lost in fear and confusion. The officers listened to the crowd more than they listened to her. They tied her wrists and pushed her into the back of a police truck. The sound of the metal door closing behind her echoed in her ears like a sentence already passed. As the truck drove away, Na's heart pounded so hard that it hurt. She thought of her mother, who would be waiting at home. She thought of her younger brother, who always looked up to her. What would they say when they learned she had been taken away? At the police station she was asked questions she could hardly understand. She tried to explain she was innocent, but no one believed her. Papers were signed, and before she could gather her thoughts, she was told she would be sent to prison to await trial. The next morning the prison gates opened before her. Cold iron bars, high walls, and stern guards greeted her eyes. The air was heavy with the smell of sweat and dampness. As she stepped inside, fear wrapped around her like a chain. Her chest tightened and her feet felt weak. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The guards pushed her forward, leading her to a large cell where other women sat on thin mats. Some looked tired, others angry, and a few curious as they stared at the new prisoner. Na's hands shook as she clutched the small bag of clothes her mother had managed to send after her arrest. One woman, older and strong-looking, raised her eyebrows. "Another one?" she muttered. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Na whispered, her voice breaking. "I was accused of stealing, but I didn't steal." The older woman gave a short laugh. "That's what we all say," she replied. "But whether it's true or not, you're here now. Welcome to your new life." Na sat quietly in a corner, hugging her knees to her chest. The cell was noisy with voices, but inside her, there was only silence. She thought of the sewing machine she had saved for, the fabric she had folded neatly at home, and the dream she had held so close. Now all of it seemed far away, locked outside the prison walls. The first night was the hardest. She lay on a thin mat, unable to sleep. Rats scratched in the corners and mosquitoes buzzed around her ears. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the people accusing her, shouting, "Thief!" even though she was innocent. She pressed her face into her pillow and wept silently, afraid the others might hear. Days turned into weeks. Na learned the prison rules: when to wake, when to eat, when to line up for head count. The food was always the same, watery soup with hard bread. Sometimes she could barely swallow it, but hunger forced her to eat. The guards shouted often, their voices sharp like whips. Na kept her head down, afraid to draw attention. Yet not everything inside was cruel. There were women who showed her kindness. A young prisoner named Efua, about her age, shared stories of her own life. "I was accused too," Efua said one night. "I didn't kill anyone, but they said I did. My family is fighting for me outside. Maybe one day justice will come." Na listened closely, finding comfort in Efua's words. For the first time she felt she was not alone. They would sit together in the evenings talking quietly about life outside, about food, family, and the dreams they still carried in their hearts. But every morning, when the heavy doors clanged open and the guards barked orders, Na was reminded of her pain. She felt trapped not only in prison but in a world that refused to believe her truth. Sometimes during silent hours she prayed. She asked for strength, for a miracle, for someone to find the real thief and set her free. She prayed for her mother, who must be crying every night. She prayed for courage to survive one more day. Weeks turned into months, and though prison life was cruel, Na changed slowly. The tears did not come as often. She learned to carry herself with quiet strength. The other women began to respect her, for she never fought, never shouted, and never lost her dignity. They started calling her small sister, and even the older prisoners sometimes protected her when guards grew too harsh. But every night before she closed her eyes, Na still dreamed of freedom. She dreamed of her sewing shop, of bright fabrics spread across a table, of customers smiling as they tried on dresses. She dreamed of walking through her neighborhood again, not as a prisoner but as a free woman. She told herself again and again, "This is not the end of my story. One day the truth will come out. One day I will walk free." And though the cold walls surrounded her, Na carried that small flame of hope deep in her heart, protecting it like a treasure no one could steal. Life in prison was harsh for Na. Each day stretched long and heavy, like a road with no end. The walls felt as if they were closing in on her, stealing away the little hope she tried to keep. The air inside was thick, filled with sweat, dust, and sadness. The other inmates treated her coldly. Some whispered when she passed, others laughed at her quiet ways. There were women who had been in prison for years, hardened by pain, who looked at her with sharp eyes as if to remind her that weakness had no place here. Na often kept to herself, sitting in a corner of the cell, folding her mat again and again just to keep her hands busy. The days moved slowly. The sun would rise, the guards would shout, and the same routine began. Roll call, watery porridge, work in the yard, more shouting, more waiting. For Na, every hour felt like a test of her strength. Loneliness pressed on her heart like a heavy stone. She missed her mother's soft voice, the smell of food cooking in their small home, and the sound of her younger brother's laughter. Nights were the hardest. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the snores and coughs of the other women. The rats still scratched in the corners and the mosquitoes bit her skin. Sometimes she wept quietly into her pillow, turning her face so no one could see. But there was one person who noticed her struggle. His name was Mensa. Mensa was a prison guard, younger than most of the others, with kind eyes that seemed out of place in such a cruel world. While the other guards barked orders, kicked mats, and shouted insults, Mensa was different. He spoke with calm authority, never raising his voice more than needed. At first, Na tried to avoid his gaze. She had learned quickly that trusting anyone in prison was dangerous. But Mensa seemed to notice her silence, her tears that she tried to hide, the way she carried herself with quiet dignity despite her pain. One afternoon, when Na was sweeping the dusty courtyard, her broom slipped from her tired hands. Before she could bend to pick it up, Mensa walked over. "You are not weak," he said quietly, handing her the broom. "You are stronger than you think." Na stared at him, surprised. Guards never spoke like that. Most only shouted or punished. She wanted to thank him, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she nodded quickly and lowered her eyes. After that day, Mensa's kindness appeared in small ways. When prisoners lined up for food, he made sure she got her portion before the stronger women pushed her aside. When she looked tired, he gave her an encouraging nod. When he saw her staring at the prison gate with longing, he said softly, "Do not give up. Your story is not finished yet." These words became a small light for Na. Even though life was still harsh, knowing someone believed in her gave her strength. She began to hold her head a little higher. Still, the other inmates noticed. Some mocked her. "Ah, see how the guard looks at you," one woman sneered. "Do you think that will save you? Kind words cannot break these walls." Na ignored them, though their words stung. She did not see Mensa as a savior. She knew she was still trapped, but his encouragement gave her hope, and hope was something no one else had offered. One evening, while the prisoners rested after a long day of work, Mensa walked past the cells. He stopped near Na and said in a low voice, "How are you holding up?" She hesitated, then whispered back, "I try, but it is hard. I feel forgotten." Mensa's eyes softened. "You are not forgotten," he said. "The truth has a way of finding its voice. Be patient. Endure. The day will come." That night, Na repeated his words over and over in her mind. The truth has a way of finding its voice. They wrapped around her heart like a blanket. Over time, small changes began to happen inside her. She no longer cried every night. She spoke more with Efua, her young cellmate, and even laughed sometimes at her jokes. She helped older women in the cell with chores, earning small nods of respect. Even though the coldness of prison life had not disappeared, Na found a way to keep walking. Mensa's presence, though simple, became part of that strength. One day, when rain poured heavily on the tin roof of the prison, Na sat by the bars, watching water run through the yard. Mensa approached, his uniform soaked from duty outside. He looked at her for a moment and said, Rain falls on everyone, Na. But not everyone knows how to grow from it. Promise me you will grow. Na looked at him, her eyes wide with emotion. I promise, she whispered. The rain thundered on, but inside her, something began to bloom. Even as the months dragged on, even as court dates were delayed and hope seemed far away, Na clung to those words. She worked harder, stood taller, and refused to let despair control her. The loneliness did not vanish, but it no longer crushed her spirit. And though the prison walls still towered high, inside her heart there was now a seed of courage, watered by kindness, waiting for the day it could break free into the sun. As time passed, life in prison did not become easier, but Na began to carry it differently. She had learned how to survive the long days, how to avoid fights, how to keep her spirit steady even when the walls felt too heavy. Yet, what truly helped her was not only her own strength, it was the quiet support of Mensa, the guard who had shown her unexpected kindness. Mensa never treated her like the other guards did. While some shouted insults or acted with cruelty, he spoke gently when no one was listening. Sometimes when his duty allowed, he slipped small gifts her way. Once it was a piece of soap, once an extra portion of food. But the gift that changed everything was a book. One afternoon, as Na sat alone near the bars, Mensa passed by. He looked left and right to make sure no one was watching, then handed her a worn-out paperback. Here, he said softly. Read it when you feel the walls pressing on you. Books can take you places where chains cannot reach. Na stared at the book in her hands. The cover was torn and the pages were yellow, but to her, it looked like treasure. She had not touched a book since her arrest. Her heart warmed as she whispered, "Thank you." From that day, Mensa brought her more books whenever he could, stories, poems, and even old newspapers. Na devoured them eagerly, reading in the dim light of the prison cell at night. The words carried her away from the damp walls and the iron bars, into worlds of hope and courage. But more than the books, it was Mensa's quiet encouragement that strengthened her. Do not lose hope, he often told her. The truth always rises like the sun. It may hide behind clouds for a time, but it cannot be covered forever. At first, Na did not understand why he cared. Guards were supposed to be distant. They kept prisoners in line, not comfort them. But Mensa was different. He did not look at her as just another inmate. He looked at her as a human being. Slowly, Na began to realize something. It was not just kindness. Mensa truly believed in her innocence. One evening, when the yard was quiet and the prisoners were locked inside, Mensa stopped near her cell. He spoke in a low voice. Na, I have watched you. You carry yourself with truth. I can see it in your eyes. You do not belong here. I believe you did not steal. Her breath caught in her throat. For months, she had carried the weight of false judgment. Everyone, strangers, the police, even some neighbors, had called her a thief. Only her family had stood by her, but they were outside, powerless to free her. Now here was a guard, a man who should have been her enemy, telling her he believed her. Why do you believe me? She whispered, her voice shaking. Mensa's eyes softened. Because innocence has a light. Guilty people may hide behind words, but their actions betray them. I see how you live here, how you treat others. I know the truth is on your side. Tears stung Na's eyes. No words came to her lips, only a nod. That night, she lay awake, replaying his words over and over. For the first time since her arrest, she felt truly seen. It was Mensa's belief in her that gave her courage to think of something she had almost given up on, appealing her case. Until then, the idea had seemed impossible. She had no money, no power, and no one to speak for her. But Mensa kept reminding her. You cannot stay silent, Na. If you give up, the false story will win. You must fight. Even if it takes time, even if the road is long, you must fight for justice. His words grew roots in her heart. Slowly she began to imagine it. She imagined standing in a court again, this time with someone to defend her, this time with her own voice strong and steady. She imagined proving her innocence, walking free, and returning to her family not as a broken woman but as someone who had survived the storm. One night, sitting in the cell with Efua by her side, Na whispered her plan. Efua, I want to appeal my case. Efua looked at her with wide eyes. But that takes courage, and money. Do you think you can? I don't know how yet, Na admitted. But Mensa says the truth cannot stay buried. He is right. If I stay silent, I will remain here forever. I must try. Efua squeezed her hand. Then try. I will stand with you. From that day, Na carried herself differently. She still wore the same plain prison clothes, still walked the same dusty yard, still ate the same tasteless meals. But inside something had changed. She had a goal. She was no longer just surviving, she was preparing. Mensa noticed the change too. One afternoon, as he handed her another book through the bars, he said, "I see fire in your eyes now. Hold on to it. Do not let fear blow it out." Na smiled faintly. "It is because of you," she said. "You gave me courage." Mensa shook his head. "No, Na. The courage was already inside you. I only reminded you of it." The days went on, but they no longer felt endless. Each one was a step closer to her fight for freedom. Sometimes Na still struggled. Fear whispered to her at night, telling her she would fail, that no one would listen, that her life was already ruined. But then she remembered Mensa's words, Fua's support, and her own dreams of sewing again. Those dreams pushed her forward. She began writing small notes on scraps of paper, words of strength, little prayers, reminders that the truth would rise. She hid them under her mat, and whenever despair tried to return, she read them again. Na was still a prisoner, but her spirit was no longer chained. She knew the road ahead would be hard, but for the first time she believed she could walk it. Mensa's kindness had planted the seed. Her own will had watered it. And now, slowly, courage was beginning to bloom. She would fight for her justice. She would fight for her freedom. And no matter how long it took, she promised herself one thing: she would not give up. After months of struggle, hope finally began to shine on Na's path. Life in prison had made her strong in ways she had never imagined, but the fight for her freedom was far from over. Every day she woke up with the same thought: one day the truth will come out. It was this hope that kept her moving, that gave her the strength to face the cold walls, the harsh guards, and the endless days of waiting. Mensa's encouragement had not stopped. If anything, he pushed her harder. He found ways to connect her to a lawyer who was willing to listen to her case. The lawyer, a middle-aged man named Lawyer Ajay, was not rich or famous, but he had a strong sense of justice. When he came to see Na for the first time, she could hardly believe it. "Tell me everything from the beginning," Lawyer Ajay said, sitting across from her in the small visiting room. His eyes were serious but gentle. Na's voice shook at first, but slowly she poured out her story, how she had been accused, how the trial had gone too quickly, how no one had listened. She told him about her life before prison, her dreams, her family, and her innocence. For the first time in months she felt truly heard. When she finished, the lawyer leaned back and folded his arms. "I believe you," he said firmly. "But belief is not enough. We need evidence. Something solid. Something that proves you were framed." Na nodded. "I don't know where to find it," she whispered. "That is my work," Ajay replied. "But you must stay strong while I search." And so, a new chapter began. While Na remained in her cell, the lawyer started digging into her case. He spoke to witnesses, went through records, and checked the smallest details that the court had ignored. Mensa helped quietly from inside, giving him hints about where to look, who to ask, and what might have been overlooked. The days dragged on, but for the first time Na had reason to believe. She and Fua prayed every night. "God, let the truth shine," Na whispered before she closed her eyes. One evening, Mensa came to her cell with a rare smile. "Na, Ajay has found something. He says there is hope." Her heart leapt. "What did he find?" Mensa lowered his voice. "The person who accused you, the one who claimed you stole, was not honest. Ajay found proof that he was in debt. He had reasons to lie. There are witnesses who saw him plant the stolen goods near your place." Na gasped, her hands trembling. "So, it was all a trap?" "Yes," Mensa said. "You were framed. And now the truth is finally coming out." Tears filled her eyes, not of pain this time but of relief. For months she had lived under the heavy shadow of lies. Now, at last, light was breaking through. The case was reopened. Lawyer Ajay stood before the court and presented the new evidence with boldness. He showed records, brought in witnesses, and pointed out every mistake made in the first trial. The story that had once painted Na as guilty now crumbled like dust. The truth was clear: she had been framed. When the judge finally spoke, the courtroom was silent. After reviewing the new evidence, he declared, "This court finds Na not guilty. She is hereby released." The words echoed in her ears. Na could hardly breathe. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. But then Fua, who had been allowed to attend the hearing, grabbed her hand and whispered, "You're free, Na." Free. Tears streamed down her face as she bowed her head. It was over. The chains that had held her were broken. Back at the prison, word spread quickly. Some inmates cheered for her, others simply watched in silence, but everyone knew what had happened. The prison that had once felt like her grave now became the place where her freedom was reborn. On the morning of her release, she stood by the iron gate, her heart pounding. Mensa was there, watching quietly from a distance. When their eyes met, he gave a small nod of pride. "You kept your promise," he said softly. "No," Na replied, her voice steady. "We kept it. Without you, I would have given up long ago." He smiled but did not answer. Some things needed no words. The gates opened and Na stepped outside. The sun hit her face, warm and bright. For the first time in months, she breathed air without bars around her. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God." Her family was waiting for her. Her mother, her younger brother, even neighbors who had doubted her before. When they saw her, they rushed forward, hugging her tightly. "We knew the truth would come out," her mother cried, though tears of guilt filled her eyes too. "Forgive us for the times we doubted." Na held her close. "I forgive you. What matters is that I am free." The community was shocked by the news. Some people who had once called her a thief now lowered their heads in shame. Others spoke of how strong she had been, how she had endured suffering with dignity. For Na, it did not matter what they said. She no longer lived under their judgment. She was free, not only in body but in spirit. That night, as she lay on a real bed again, she thought about everything that had happened. Prison had broken her once, but it had also rebuilt her. It had taught her patience, courage, and humility. It had shown her that even in the darkest place, light could still enter, sometimes through the kindness of a single soul like Mensa. She whispered into the quiet room, "The same prison that crushed me is the same place where I found my freedom. It did not defeat me. It made me stronger." And with that thought, Na closed her eyes and slept peacefully, knowing her life had begun again. Na walked out of the prison gates with her head held high, though her eyes were wet with tears. For a long moment she simply stood there, looking at the world that she had dreamed about for so many months. The sky looked wider, the air felt fresher, and the sun touched her skin like a warm embrace. She was free, truly free. Behind her, the heavy gates closed with a loud sound, but it no longer trapped her. That chapter of her life had ended. In front of her stood her family, neighbors, and a few strangers who had come to see the woman who had been proven innocent after so long. But before she ran to them, her eyes searched for one face, the man who had given her hope when she had none. Mensa was standing a little to the side, away from the crowd. His uniform was the same as always, his posture straight, but his eyes were softer than usual. When their gazes met, she saw pride there, pride and quiet joy. For a moment they simply looked at each other. So much had passed between them without words. He had seen her at her lowest, reminded her of her strength, and stood by her when the world called her guilty. She walked toward him slowly. Her voice shook with emotion when she spoke. "Mensa, I don't have the right words. Thank you is too small. Without you, I would still be inside, broken." Mensa shook his head gently. "No, Na. You saved yourself. I only reminded you of what you already carried. You had courage long before I gave you books or words. You just needed to see it for yourself." Her tears fell harder, but this time they were not from sorrow, they were from gratitude. "Still," she whispered, "I will never forget you." Mensa gave a small smile. "That is enough for me." He glanced toward her waiting family. "Go to them. They have missed you. Live your life fully. Do not let the past hold you anymore." Na nodded, but before leaving she added softly, "You showed me something I will carry forever, that kindness can exist even in the darkest place." With that, she turned and walked toward her mother, who opened her arms wide and pulled her into a tearful embrace. Her brother clung to her side, refusing to let go. The neighbors whispered, some in shame for doubting her, others in awe of her strength. As she stood there, surrounded by love, she realized how far she had come. Prison had been her nightmare. It had stolen her freedom, her dignity, her peace. Yet, it had also given her something unexpected. It had shown her the power of patience, the importance of humility, and the strength that lived inside her. Most of all, it had shown her the beauty of kindness, kindness that could bloom even in a place full of pain. That night, back at home, Na could not sleep right away. She lay on her bed, listening to the quiet sounds of her family sleeping, and her mind returned to the past months. She remembered the cold walls, the endless nights of fear, the loneliness that had nearly crushed her. She remembered how close she had come to giving up. But she also remembered Efua's friendship, the scraps of notes she had written to remind herself of hope, and Mensa's steady words. She thought of the books he had given her, each one a window into a world outside those bars. Those stories had been more than pages, they had been lifelines. They had carried her spirit when her body was chained. Tears slid down her cheeks again, but these tears were gentle, like rain that brings new life to the earth. "The prison changed me," she whispered into the dark. It broke me, but it also made me stronger. It gave me a new beginning. In the days that followed, Na became a symbol in her community. People who had once turned their backs on her now came to her house, apologizing and praising her courage. At first it was difficult to face them. Their words reminded her of their silence when she had needed them most. But Na had learned something deeper in prison. Anger only chained the heart. So she forgave them. She listened to their apologies and answered with a smile, even when her heart still carried scars. Forgiveness, she realized, was not for them alone, it was for her own freedom. Slowly she returned to her old dreams. She began sewing again, her hands steady as they worked on fabric. Each stitch felt like a step toward rebuilding her life. She worked with patience as if she were stitching back the pieces of her soul. Soon, her small sewing business began to grow, and neighbors who once doubted her now came to her as customers. Sometimes as she worked, she thought of Mensa. She imagined him walking the prison halls, still carrying himself with quiet strength, still showing kindness in small ways. She wished she could thank him again, but she also knew that some people were meant to be remembered not in presents, but in the lessons they left behind. Mensa had given her the greatest lesson, that even when the world is cruel, one act of kindness can change everything. Months passed, and though life was not perfect, Na was free in every sense of the word. She had her family, her work, her dignity, and her peace. The memory of prison would never leave her, but she no longer saw it as only suffering. She saw it as the place where her life had turned, where her weakness had become strength, and where darkness had taught her the meaning of light. One evening she stood outside her home, watching the sun sink behind the horizon. The sky was painted with gold and red, and the air smelled of dust and cooking fires. As she stood there, she closed her eyes and whispered, "The pain did not destroy me. It gave me a new life." Her lips curved into a soft smile as she added, "The prison gates closed behind me, but my heart opened to something greater. Kindness, strength, freedom. That is my true story now." With her head held high, Na stepped back inside her home, ready to continue her journey. The prison was behind her, but the lessons it gave her would walk with her forever.